The thing that I would say is it will become a real strength, if not a superpower, if you can separate yourself from your business.
In this episode, I'm excited to announce my first international guest, Sarah Hawley, who's an Aussie but now lives in the US. Sarah is the CEO and founder of Growmotely, which is an all-in-one global recruitment platform. Make sure you take some notes on this one because we go into quite a deep dive. We talk about working with millennials, the transformational power of inner work and how it affects business, vision boarding, and the energy of money, to name just a few things. I hope you learn as much as I did from this one. Enjoy. So you're living in Austin, Texas, is that correct?
Yeah, I live between Austin and Colorado. So I have a house in Keystone, which is a ski resort about an hour 45 west of Denver in Colorado. And then we have a house in Austin as well. And we kind of just go between the two. That's
awesome. So you've just got married, I understand, and you've now got baby Luca. Is that right?
Yeah.
on the way. So I love the name Luca, by the way. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about the family at the moment, and then maybe we'll dovetail into it a little bit more later. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I met Joe, my husband, right before the pandemic, actually. So we met at a retreat in Minnesota about a week before the pandemic, and kind of hit it off straight away. And I knew there was a connection and stuff, and we were messaging throughout the week, and I had to be in Austin the following week. And we decided we would go on a date, and we kind of were joking about potentially locking down together because we were starting to hear these, rumors. It was really quite quick, it was not my relationship. That was quick as well. But the hearing about COVID to when we went into lockdown was pretty fast.
Yeah, accelerated.
I remember being on retreat, which was the weekend before, and everyone was sort of talking about it, but we didn't really know what it was. And by the next weekend, it was oh, we're going to be going into lockdown next week. So we started joking about locking down together, and we thought it was going to be a couple of weeks and that would be fun. And so I got down to Austin and we went on our first date, and the following day, everything went well. And I was so what do you think we should do? Should I stay or should I go back to Colorado, or what do you think? Because both of us had a whole bunch of travel that had been canceled. And so we were both not really sure. And we're yeah, let's just lock down together and see what happens. And the rest is history. We ended up staying together we've basically been together ever since.
Wow.
And ended up in July, found out we were pregnant, and then decided to get married. We eloped in Vegas, which was fun, in October.
Awesome. And, did you get one of those mugs?
Yeah.
We're married. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. It's so COVID actually locked you down, and a marriage and a baby on the way ensued.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's been the most amazing experience, the most beautiful, expansive relationship. And he's a very conscious soul. And we he was, either way, one of the most amazing people to be locked down with, because we both decided we would use the time to do a lot of inner work and just be really grateful and really present for all this extra space and time that we had. Both of us had a very frantic travel schedule for years before. My whole life, pretty much my whole adult life, has been travel and adventure, and he was very similar. And so it was kind of so strange at the beginning to have your entire year just cleared, or an indefinite amount of time, your whole calendar just cleared. And he's a very positive, grateful person as well. And so it was great to be with somebody like that. And it turned out even better than I could have expected, obviously falling in love and all of that.
Was it really strange to find someone that was so similar in terms of some of their experiences? Was it a bit strange?
Yeah, I mean, it felt very divine. And I remember the first time sitting down to talk with him properly, we sort of said hi and and then we ended up chatting to each other. And I just remember looking in his eyes and just seeing this, his soul, and just feeling this kind of warmth and openness and almost like a remembering. It was really beautiful, and I really felt like I want to know this person more. You don't always know in the first conversation exactly what that feeling is, but it just built over the weekend. And yeah, it was such a gift to end up in that situation with someone who is just so wonderful and similar, and we were able to learn and grow from each other. It felt like a gift, even if nothing had happened with us romantically, but then it ended up, as I said, so much better than I could have even imagined.
So I imagine, when we get to talk about COVID and pandemic, there's only there's a lot of positive things to say about it from your perspective. It's amazing.
Best year of my life.
Okay, that's so good. That's so good. Now, we'll get back into that in a second. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about what Growmotely is, and then we'll perhaps get you to talk about, give us a bit of a timeline of, business and what you've kind of done over time. So yeah, I'll let you run on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was another really amazing thing for me during 2020 was being in the space of remote work, which is what my business Growmotely is, and my other business Grow My Team. 2020 just jumped us forward 10 years in terms of what I thought the future of remote work was going to be. So it was a real gift in that regard. So we've had Grow My Team since 2014, which is a remote staffing agency essentially, but we've kind of transitioned now into a full human resources solution for businesses that are invested in their teams, invested in building happy, engaged, high-performing teams. So that's been a great business that, as I said, we've been fully remote and working with fully remote businesses since 2014. Last year, pre-pandemic, it's early in 2021 right now. So I'm saying last year, but I mean 2019. 2019, yeah. We kind of, in Grow My Team, we came up with the idea for Growmotely, which was going to be the world's first remote staffing technology platform. So a job board, essentially a global job board with payroll and contracts and a whole bunch of culture management tools so that small to medium companies can build their remote teams, their globally distributed remote teams online. And we were already building it pre-COVID, thinking that we had sort of 5 to 10 years to kind of organically go to market with it.
Yeah.
And that was another amazing thing that happened right before the lockdown. I closed my pre-seed investment round of, well, it was meant to be $350,000. We ended up oversubscribed and raised $470,000 on March 13th, which was the Friday before I went into lockdown. So I met my future husband, closed my fundraising round. Wow. And the following week, following weeks ahead, fell in love and realized that the entire world was experiencing remote work. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I've just been handed the biggest gift when it comes to my business. And obviously I say all of this with a lot of compassion for the suffering and the struggle that people have had this year. But I'm really mindful as well not to apologize for my experience. Like I've had really rough years in my life as well. Yeah. And that is part of life. We have the ups and the downs and the cycles and the waves. But yeah, 2020 ended up being a really fortuitous year for me, along with some challenge. I had another business that I had bought in 2019 that was an Airbnb property management business that we had to end up putting into liquidation. So, I wasn't immune from it. No. But I definitely chose to look at the bright side and the positive and lean into all the opportunity that was being presented to me.
So COVID did obviously there were some challenges that presented, obviously, because you did purchase that business at a suboptimal time. You weren't to know, obviously.
Yeah, totally.
And but when you look at the pros and cons of what you've just, and I'm just looking at it from the surface, the pros and cons of what you've just listed. I mean, COVID's been exceptional in the sense of what the opportunities that it's brought for you. That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was a real bummer, like some of that stuff that happened, but at the same time, it's just, I'm very attuned to my energy and leaning into what feels expansive and what feels, more contracting. And that business was struggling and suffering and it was really difficult. And then there was a whole lot of opportunity over here. And at some point in time, we just kind of decided, well, let's just cut our losses on that one and really just put our energy and effort into this stuff over here. And, that was all those experiences are part of business,
Absolutely. So Growmotely is the business, is your sole concentration and focus at the moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So I'm handing over the CEO role of Grow My Team to Ren Matheson, who's been working in my team at Grow My Team for some time now. So we're in the middle of sort of a transition this first quarter of 2021, but I'm essentially then full-time CEO of Growmotely, and totally committed to it. I'm very, very excited about the opportunity. It's huge.
It is. I'm hearing you and I'm thinking, geez, there's a lot going on and you're also pregnant. What are you going to do? How are you going to balance it all out? I'm naive to what goes through a woman's body when they're pregnant. I can imagine it's challenging.
Yeah, it definitely is. And being pregnant has challenged me in a lot of ways. I think, there's the obvious transition from, if people are familiar with like archetypes and things, transitioning from like maiden to mother. They say there's 3 phases in a woman's life: maiden, mother, and then crone. So kind of the young, more naive kind of maiden, and then the mother, which is the nurturer, and then later the crone, which is the wizened older woman. So I've really felt that transition, and I'm 39, so I held on to my maiden years as long as I could. But I've really felt that transition into this new phase of my life, which I think transitions also come with grieving of the past and letting go. And I think to make space for that process is really important, and to be okay with the fact that the things that we may feel about letting go, they're not good or bad. We don't need to label them as positive or negative or feel guilt that, we might be feeling things about letting go of that part of our life. I think that's a natural part of the process. And at the same time, being excited and open and welcoming to that next phase. So there's all of that. And then the physical side of being pregnant has been rough on me. Like the first trimester, I had morning sickness all day, every day. And then the second trimester, which a lot of people apparently quite enjoy, felt like it was so uncomfortable in my body. Like I just felt like I was being stretched from the inside out, and all of my bone structure and everything was just aching all the time. And ironically, I've just entered my 3rd trimester a couple of weeks ago, and I actually feel a lot better than I have the rest of the pregnancy. So it's really good. But there's a lot going on. I've always had a pretty full, varied life. So I think to some degree I have a capacity and a tolerance for holding, a lot, maybe compared to some people, I don't know. But I've also learned over the years how to create a lot of space in my life. So there can be a lot going on, but I know how to, generally speaking, play in my area of genius in each of those things and not sort of try to do everything. So in my role as CEO, it's leadership, vision, and strategy. Like I'm not trying to do anything else. That's really what I'm trying to do in my company. And so that the more that I stay in that zone of genius and don't get bogged into all these different little things that we can do in our companies, the more time I also have for other things, because I'm not, it's very easy for us to become workaholics and just sit and work 16 hours a day if we want to, just doing stuff. But is it actually high reward, highly efficient, productive, high return work? And I know how to focus on that. And I feel like I will approach motherhood and family life in a similar way. Like it's really important to me to prioritize my relationship with my husband, and it'll be really important to me to prioritize my time with my child. So, we're already talking about finding kind of nanny, house help, somebody who can do a lot of like the chores and things around the house, so that the dedicated time that we do have with our son and with each other, or I should say the time we have with our son and each other, is more dedicated to loving and being with each other rather than doing the groceries with child in tow, if that makes sense.
So from a tangible perspective, do you feel like you're allocating the same amount of time now that you were pre-pregnancy to your responsibilities in business, or have you actually lessened the load and have become more fixed in certain areas and had to say no to more things that you perhaps in your younger days or days pre-pregnancy would have had to take on?
Yeah, I find life it's like a constant reevaluation of priorities. You know, it happens all the time. We don't get it right today and for the rest of my life it looks exactly like this. It feels like, you know, because we're always growing and evolving and things are shifting. And so ultimately I spend time regularly evaluating, well, what are my priorities and where am I leaking energy and how can I tighten it up again? And I literally just did that about a week ago, and I restructured a couple of things and started saying no to a bunch of stuff because I realized, I was getting a little bit leaky, like I was probably not being as discerning with my time. And I realized I'm going to have to be discerning because I have the baby coming and I have this tech startup that's really demanding a lot of attention. So I think, it's a constant evaluation of those priorities and then coming back into alignment and being comfortable saying no and making those changes for sure.
Okay. So just a bit of a change of direction, but we'll come back to family as well in a sec. I just reflecting on some of the other podcasts I've heard where you've been interviewed. I think you've made a business of owning businesses, you're very talented at it. And I'd like a little bit of a kind of, if you could have a chat to us about the businesses that you've sort of owned and perhaps why you sold them maybe go through, the kind of history of it, but then also maybe focus on one. Maybe we talk about the one was serving millennials as an example, financial planning business that was serving millennials. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, like you, I came into financial planning with my dad. I think you mentioned before the show that's how you kind of got into it as well. And really fell in love with the idea of financial advice and what it did for people. And I think that was related to my own desire for freedom, my own desire to live life on my own terms. And to have that kind of plan in place and to be building that financial freedom, because money essentially is an energy that allows us to create the lifestyle that we want for ourselves and those around us. So I fell in love with that, but I also at the same time fell in love with business. I was very interested from early on with my dad about like, how does this work and how does that work and how does the actual business run? And over time, I think I saw myself falling more and more for the business side of things, while still being incredibly passionate about financial planning as a concept. But what I enjoyed, and I think the way I would frame it actually is once I started my first company. Really, I had a couple of dabbles in small things, but I started my first company when I was 27 or 28. And it was a private wealth management firm. And I was the key advisor. And then I had, a small team. I had my business partner who was my ex-husband. And I had Freya Savage, who's still a really good friend of mine, who's a money coach now. She was the first person I ever hired. She was working with me as an assistant. And we had like an intern as well. So I was seeing all the clients and running the business. And after probably about 2 years, I started getting really burnt out of holding space for all of these amazing clients and holding space for my growing company, my growing team.
Yep.
And I started looking at that to kind of circle back to that whole like prioritizing. And it was one of those come to Jesus moments, I suppose, where I thought I can't like cope too much more with all of this. And for too much longer. And I probably can't grow the company any further. Like I'm at my capacity energetically of what I can manage. So what do I like more, financial planning or running the business? And it was very hard for me to let go of being the financial planner because I had such, an ego attachment and identity attachment to that. But ultimately, the truth was I liked the business side of it more. So I stepped at that point, which probably was around 2012, into running the company, and we hired an advisor. And it was at the same time that we launched Wealth Enhancers, which was Australia's first millennial focused financial advisory firm. And that was something that once again, I'd become incredibly passionate about who was advising our age group. And I was working with all these high net worth retirees and pre-retirees who were amazing. Like most of them were entrepreneurs as well. And I was asking them for myself, like, how did you become so successful? How did you get to this point? You know, and they were sharing it with me, and a lot of them were saying, well, we started young. We had advice young. And I was like, damn, that's not happening these days. Like my friends don't have advisors.
No.
And, and I saw a bit of an opportunity. I also had friends of mine asking me, well, can you tell us what to do? And so, yeah, we launched Wealth Enhancers, and that was such an amazing journey. And a couple of years later, decided to sell WE Private, which was the private client business, because we saw that there was a bigger opportunity with the millennial market. And once again, it was like lighting me up just so much more than the other business. So that was that journey.
Just on your just interested, you know, with respect to millennials. I mean, it's pretty brave to go out there and create a business solely for millennials when you consider that most financial advisors, if you talk with them, they'll be relatively, I suppose, worried about that, because millennials can be the do-it-yourself type. They can sometimes also be fee sensitive given where they are. And it's a complete kind of reversal of the way, I suppose, the industry, particularly at that point in time, was kind of built. It was built to serve retirees. It was built to serve, you know, pre-retirees with capital. So to be able to charge a fee, and I know from for doing my research that you charged fixed fees and you know, fee for service. That would have been a challenge.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, it's super challenging. It's challenging for me now even.
I know, and it was 2012, like it was, you know, almost coming on 10 years ago. It was nine years ago, essentially. And the oldest millennials at that time were, I guess you and I are like 81.
Yep, correct.
Babies. 80, I think, is the oldest millennial. So essentially the oldest millennials were roughly our age back then, which was, you know, 32-ish. So the youngest millennials were still finishing school and all of that. Obviously now the segment's moved forward. It's a little more mature. But yeah, it's a whole different demographic. It is a whole different way of doing business, and all of the old rules did not apply.
No, they didn't. Yep.
Yeah. And so exactly what you said, like this kind of DIY type attitude, or this, what we would find a lot of would be people coming in for a year or so and then being like, okay, I feel good. Like you've given me all these great foundations. I want to go do it myself now.
Yep.
Which did not happen in the private client business. I mean, these were relationships that, you know, we had for 7 years or something like that. And the company that we'd acquired, a couple of businesses, they'd had the relationship for 15 years. Like, and in my experience with my dad's business, like those clients had been with him his whole career. So it was quite different. There was so much learning, and it was exciting and incredibly frustrating. We went through a 4-year period where, so we sort of had, I think it was 2012, we launched, had a pretty decent year, did a couple $100,000 revenue, and we're like, all right, this is, you know, it's definitely a yes in terms of
it's
commercial
doable.
model. Like, like people are liking it or whatever. And then the following year we jumped up to somewhere near the mil mark, and then we just got stuck for 4 years. Like we just could not grow, and not for lack of trying and not for lack of effort. No. And we were just turning over. Like we just couldn't we couldn't onboard new clients to beat our drop-off rate. So, and so that was incredibly frustrating, because there was so much work going into sales and marketing and attracting new clients and building our community and doing all this amazing work. And we were getting really well known for what we did, and we were winning awards, and what we were doing was well recognized, well understood-ish and well known, but we just weren't able to grow. And then it was 4 years in that I changed. I started looking at actually the advisor setup in our business, the model of how we were paying our advisors and how that was set up. And we also had recently cracked the code on inbound leads. So we were starting to generate like 75 to 100 leads a month, which was great. Before then, you know, it was sort of 5 to 10. So that's why we were slowly growing. And I changed the advisory model to be more entrepreneurial, because I recognized that also millennial financial advisors were also different demographically. And they wanted more freedom, more flexibility, and a more entrepreneurial feel. And I discovered that they were willing to take some risks for that. They were willing to work for a fee share arrangement instead of a salary in return for a whole lot of freedom and flexibility and unlimited upside. They could grow their business, as big as they wanted. And so I changed the model of how we were engaging in paying advisors. And within the next 6 months, we grew revenue by 60% and carried on from there, 57% to be exact. I remember, because I was very proud of it. And I was very,
you would be. Yeah. So is that when you cracked the $1 million mark, you're sort of going above and pushing through that barrier as a result of some of these changes? Is that what you're suggesting?
Exactly. Like, everything just started finally, literally within 6 months, it was just like, we're away. Coincidentally, my ex-husband and I had split up at that time, and we worked together for about 18 months. And that was during the period where I kind of cracked that nut. And it was just getting increasingly difficult for us to work together. And so he ended up buying me out after much discussion of who was going to buy who out. So, I didn't get to kind of really see that through, but I know it was on a really good trajectory at that point. And, it felt like we'd finally put all the puzzle pieces in place to grow that thing.
Yeah. Was it obviously it would have been very stressful and challenging for you to be working with now your ex-husband, and then having to do a split and a breakup at the same time, making decisions on business and trying to keep the continuity going and all the rest of it. That must have been unbelievably challenging.
It was so tough. I mean, ending a relationship where you either were engaged or married, where you think that you're going to spend your life with that person. I think all relationship breakups are difficult, but I think there's something extra or different or something about a relationship that you thought was going to be forever. Especially the first time. That was like such a big thing for me. And I have a different perspective on relationships. Generally, I have a different perspective on the commitment that I can and will make now.
Yes.
But yeah, it was incredibly difficult. And we did quite well to kind of navigate out of the personal stuff. We did that quite quickly, like separated our finances and moved out and sorted things out, but then had this ideal of continuing to work together. And we both put a lot of effort into trying to remain friends and build our relationship, but it was just challenging. And over time, it just got to the point where it wasn't, allowing us the space we each needed to move on. And I think what can happen in those situations is all of the other frustrations, emotions, challenges kind of come out in whatever the obvious easy thing is, which you might be bickering over some work decision, but it's really not about that. It's really about, this 8 years of stuff that you've been trying to figure out that's led to you breaking up. So, yeah.
You know what I'm absolutely intrigued by? I'm intrigued by this idea that business owners, I mean, not all of them, but there's a lot of them that are career business owners with one business. The unbelievable strength that must take to actually separate yourself from your business and say, I'm not going to be part of that and I'm going to look for something else or another opportunity. Firstly, a lot of times your ego and your self-esteem and all of that is sort of built into what you've done there. To be able to just remove yourself from that and do that replicably, I think there's some insights there for the listeners around, what is it? How do you do that? Because I mean, even for me, to think about me not being in the business, it's part of my heritage. It's part of what I've done. I worked with my dad in it. Wow. It's super courageous.
Well, the thing that I would say is it will become a real strength, if not a superpower, if you can separate yourself from your business. Because while we view the business as an extension of ourselves, we're very susceptible to the waves of, if somebody's happy, oh my God, we are good. We are validated personally. If somebody's not happy, we suck. We're no good. We're a failure. And this extends to, it could be a team member, it could be a client or whatever. And we are just every day with the waves of that. That's really, I'm sure anyone listening can relate to how high and low that is, and how incredibly painful and incredibly high it can make you. And I guess there's on one hand, like the highs are worth the lows. But in my experience, when I was able to start separating myself and when I was able to start separating myself, what it did was it smoothed that line for me. So that up and down line, like I still, of course, feel good when we achieve great things in the business. And I still feel a little bit shitty when a client's unhappy or something's, we're having a challenge here or there. Like, of course, I'm not totally removed from it, but the line is more smooth now instead of being this like jagged up and down. Oh my goodness. I'm amazing, I'm failing, I'm amazing, I'm failing.
Is it because are you able to sort of like take a step back from yourself and actually just reflect on, oh, look, I'm actually feeling the feelings of joy here that we're doing so well, but not necessarily fuse with that? Like as if is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's not me, it's the business, which is actually one, I believe the business itself has its own conscious entity, like it is its own being. It was birthed into the world and now it exists outside of everybody and it's a thing. And I think anyone who's if you ever reflect back on your business, say a 2-year period or a 5-year period and be like, wow, like how did we end up where we are? It's really transformed. It's really amazing. And yeah, part of that is you, but part of that is also this kind of natural energy that the business has and this collaboration of the different people and different opportunities. And the more connected we become with our centers and the universe and listening to what's actually happening within that business, the more we can go on that journey with it. So I think that's really beautiful to kind of surrender into. But yeah, I don't know, it's very freeing and very empowering to not be so attached to it, and to see where it takes itself and where your team, like letting your team step up into their areas of power as well. That's another thing we do when we're super like on our businesses, is we don't often let our teams be fully empowered because we're so scared of something going wrong that we micromanage, we stay on top of them, all those kind of things. So, we're also kind of stifling the growth of the people around us. We're stifling their genius. We're stifling what could be. And one of the ways I thought about it was, like, if I think I'm smarter than the universe, that's crazy. Maybe I should like relinquish a little bit of control here and trust that I'm in partnership with this incredibly crazy interconnected galaxy universe, whatever your beliefs are. But it's pretty wild. And to think that I am more than that and I know everything and I know what's best and my goals are exactly, right. I don't know, allowing a little fluidity in there and allowing, I like to think of it like a partnership with the universe and listening and seeing where it goes and where it grows.
I hope you're enjoying my interview with Sarah, and as you'll appreciate, calling her Sarah from Growmotely doesn't really capture the depth of her experiences at all. In fact, this would be true of any of the guests I've interviewed. It's this sort of binary, superficial view of people and their families which can be a major contributor in not getting the right tax, financial, legal, and/or business advice. In fact, life advice. This is why any professional, whether it be an accountant, insurance advisor, or a solicitor, that is engaged to assist you on your wealth management journey should really make some adequate inquiry into what makes you tick, what is important to you and your family, and what are your views on the world, just to name a few things, so that the advice is really in harmony with what you hold important to you. Our team, Stefan Independent Advisory, which is really the engine that fuels this pod, has worked behind the scenes interviewing several business owners to create a special report, Leading a Family, Leaving a Legacy, to educate families on what factors contribute to a successful wealth management experience and a well-intentioned life. This resource is made available to our community at our website, www.itsneveraboutmoney.com.au. Now back to Sarah. In the next part of this episode, we discuss how Sarah's financial success didn't translate into happiness, how being busy and ticking all the boxes expected of her drove her into a deep unhappiness, and how turning inwards, meditating, journaling, and even going on an ayahuasca retreat really helped her step out of her depression and discover what it means to be well-rounded. I wonder, were you tired of financial services?
Yes.
And would you ever get back into financial services?
Unlikely.
And could you explain the phenomenon of a mass exodus of advisors moving out of the industry? And do you think it can only be explained by, the changes in legislation, the education reforms that are going on, the increased scrutiny?
Yeah.
Can you explain why you think there's a mass exodus and why you think financial advisors, and I'm putting words in your mouth, you may not feel this, but certainly from my perspective, financial advisors are often getting very tired and stressed in their role. So,
I mean, the first thing is I don't know if there is a mass exodus or not. So, because I'm not super tapped into the industry anymore, but I assume that there is from what you're saying. So I can talk to that point of what I would imagine is going on. And it was around 2018 that I ended up negotiating that my ex-husband would buy me out and kind of going on my way. And it did go backwards and forwards for about 3 months. And, it was messy and tricky and challenging. And in the end, that's the decision we came to. And it was bittersweet. It was 17 years in finance for me. There was a lot of personal stuff wrapped up in it to do with my dad, who had passed away in 2013. There was a lot of just family attachment and my identity. Once again, even though I'd had multiple businesses, I still very much identified as being one of Australia's finance experts, like this millennial finance expert. And so, yeah, it was a lot. And I ended up having a breakdown in October of 2018, which was only about a month after I sold out. So I'm sure that was, wrapped up in that. However, despite the challenge and how hard it was and the letting go I needed to do, I did know it was the right thing. And I did feel a sense of relief to be out of such a heavily regulated industry. And when what helped me make the decision at the time, and when I reflect back on it now, it had just become increasingly difficult, and it had become increasingly difficult to run a business. And what was sad about it was we were spending so much less time doing the bit that we love as financial advisors, which is both engaging with clients and guiding them and taking them on this journey and really being a coach and a confidant and a mentor, and the strategy of financial planning. There's a nerd in me that loves diving into a spreadsheet and figuring all that out. That's the two pieces of the work that we love as financial advisors. And generally we might have a bent toward one or the other, but we love them. Creating 50-page compliance documents for every single time we talk with a client, having a business like mine where we invoice and bill our clients every single month. Not only that, but we provide them with cash flow tracking statements so they know where all of their money is going. And then once a year having to provide this fee disclosure statement. I don't know if they're still doing that now, but provide this fee disclosure statement.
Yes, they are.
That we had to list every time we did talk to them, if they got all of our services or not. So we had to make sure we tracked everything and how much they had paid. I had no issue with, we were so transparent with our fees. I mean, they were printed on our website.
Yeah.
They were coming out of their bank account every month. They were getting an email invoice to them every month. Yet we still had to spend time once a year creating this fee disclosure statement, which was time that ultimately the customer was paying for, because we had to have staff members that could do all those things.
Yeah.
And that's just one example, but obviously I could go on. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised people are leaving. I know it got a lot worse after I left.
Yeah. So when did you leave again? Sorry, give me the date.
2018, around September.
Yeah. Okay. So note to regulators, people are still saying the same things that Sarah is saying. And it's two years on. Yeah. I
think what was sad from my perspective was, our cohort of young professional financial advisors who were all degree, mostly, multiple degree, graduate degree, educated, charging flat fees for service, really just committed to the work they were doing.
Yep.
we were the ones doing all of this extra work and having to build these businesses that could handle all of the level of compliance, because a lot of the old stuff got carved out of the regulation. A lot of the old commissions and old things actually was able to stand. So people who had been doing it for 30 years could just sit back and continue to, and they were often the advisors that, didn't necessarily have quite such high professional standards of education and training and all that. So, and certainly not criticizing anybody at all in the industry, but I can see, I'm really happy to be out of it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges. You feel that the rules are not actually built for you. They've never been devised around you and what you are as a financial advisor, how you've grown, what sort of education you've taken on from university onwards, and the professional peers that you have of your own age demographic. Like you and I know what financial planning is all about, and have been servicing with the client end need in mind from the get-go. But the rules are like making you feel that they're looking over your shoulder every step of the way, and taking up a lot of your time.
Well, and it's not until getting out of the industry, because as I say, I mean, I was pretty much in it since I was 19 till I was 38, or 37. But it's not until I got out of the industry that I realized my whole career in financial planning, there was an underlying element of fear that I was going to make a mistake and it was going to cost me. It was going to cost me my license, my business, my integrity, because these things can also get painted really poorly. Like, one of my really good friends, Sam Henderson, got slandered across all of the media. And I know Sam really well. He's a good person who did good by his clients. And maybe he made some mistakes in his business. And I honestly don't even know the whole stories of it. But I do really, hand on my heart, know that Sam Henderson was a good person who cared about financial advice the way that you and I do. And he got used as a bit of a scapegoat, as far as it seemed to me. I'm not super plugged into mainstream media at all, but just to watch someone kind of go down publicly when that they cared about their clients, that were trying to do the right thing and have a business for themselves, but like the way that the regulation is. And I remember hearing about it right from early on, like even if the client's happy and you're happy, if you missed a document or didn't dot a I or cross a T and that was, out of line, you're at risk of something happening, being fined, losing your license, whatever. And that layer of fear that kind of overshadowed my entire financial advice career is something I'm very happy to live without now, to be in businesses where I don't have that fear.
I don't want to put you in a state of anxiety in any way, but if you were enforced back into the financial advice industry, what would you tell yourself to do now differently than what you probably did in that fear-induced state? How would you behave differently, and how could you basically give a little bit of advice to financial advisors right now about how they may be able to navigate these challenges?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, I think there's no point living in fear anyway. So if you're going to be in the industry, there's got to be an element of choosing not to be in fear. And I think that's definitely something I've embraced in my life a lot more, especially since having a breakdown and all of the healing work I've done since then. Anxiety is something I struggled with most of my life until I did ayahuasca for the first time. And, I really haven't had it since then. And 2020 was a great year to dance with fear and decide not to buy into it. And still, right? I mean, it's very easy. I think most of the collective are somewhat plugged into the fear of what is happening with this global pandemic. And I choose not to be all the time. So I think that's the first thing is, if you're going to be in the industry, do your best, show up every day, and, don't live in fear. But the other thing, that if I was to go back in, I would look to create a very simple, streamlined service offering that I was able to deliver something that I perceive to be of value in a streamlined manner. And I think when I look back on my journey with Wealth Enhancers, we really tried to do everything. We really
Mm.
tried to do so much. We were basically private wealth management, family office for millennials,
Mm-hmm.
full services, full everything. And that's where the layers of complexity around compliance just become so burdensome. If you can just do one thing, I mean, I would probably lean toward financial coaching and stay out of product advice if I was to go back. So I don't know if that answers your question or
No, I
not.
think
Because I'm
it does.
technically a financial advisor, but yeah, I probably would stay out of the stuff that's more regulated, just because it's a headache and a nightmare. And you just know every day the customer is paying these fees to me because I need 3 staff to support me seeing them.
I think one of the greatest messages that you've given, and it was relating to ego and really not fusing with the idea that you as a person are a financial advisor and that's all you are, that you are well-rounded, that you have other things in your life that you can attach to if you want to at times, that you have a strong sense of family and community and other bits and pieces. I think that's a really, really strong message. And certainly from my perspective, it's helped me. And it is a good segue into the next sort of, part that I want to talk to you about is being well-rounded as a human being. And, what does that mean to be well-rounded and to be well, to you?
I love this stuff. Yeah. I mean, well, I think, in the lead up to me suffering the breakdown, which really was a breakthrough, like that saying is so true. If anyone's heard it. But it was sort of early 2017 that my marriage ended. And it was 2016 that I found myself living in Colorado in an 8-bedroom mansion in one of the best ski resorts in North America. Just had plenty of wealth, had the husband, had the everything, the business, the works, and just inside I still didn't feel good. So all the years of striving and proving and ticking external boxes that I thought would ultimately make me happy, something had to give at some point. And it was like, okay, you've done all the things that you thought, time to actually go inward. And it's not to say that I had completely neglected my inner world, but it required a lot of deep diving over the last few years. And I think, to answer your question, I think it's to be physically well, to be emotionally well, and spiritually well, whatever that might mean for you. But when we just focus on one or the other areas, they will catch up with you, and one area is representative of every other ultimately, because it's how we feel about ourselves. When we truly love and accept and value ourselves, which is a tough journey, it is not easy. You can't just turn around one day and be like, all right, I'm going to love myself. And it's not necessarily confidence or, I was a very confident person. I had a very healthy self-esteem and all of that. But the truth was, deep inside, I didn't love myself. I didn't think I was enough. Hence why I was always striving, always trying to prove, always, trying to get those external validation points so that I could feel better about myself. But it was a fruitless game. As soon as you achieve one thing, you're just already going, well, what's next? Because if I don't achieve something else, I'm not worth anything. And so that work it's deep and it is hard, and I honor anyone who is on that journey. And there's so many times that you want to go back. You just want to go back to forgetting and to doing the external validation and the numbing out, because it's a lot easier.
Being on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Being on your phone, using substances, being really busy. I mean, that was one of my classic numbing strategies, was just to be frantically busy all the time.
Perfect. You're a business owner, right? So you can just
totally
bury yourself in business and not come up for breath.
Yep. Have a really active social life, a really active professional life, and just be really, really busy, and frantic. And then there's no time to even think. I mean, I had a busy day today, and it was so interesting. I was late for this podcast, and it was so interesting for me because I spent an hour of today in a state that I used to spend 24/7 in for almost my entire adult life. And it was this reminder and this gratitude that I do not live like that anymore. Thank God this was just an hour that I'll experience like
Mm-hmm.
this month or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't very pleasant, but it was okay. But it was just this reminder that, damn, I used to live like this all the time. So yeah, I mean, physically, emotionally, spiritually, it's really important to be well in all areas and to know that one affects the other.
So I have a feeling, I might be completely incorrect, but I have a feeling that if you looked at yourself when you were pre all of this, and you were looking at yourself and thinking, like, if I had a moment when you had a moment by yourself and there was nothing going on, that you would find that a little bit more intolerable than you would now.
I would find it 100% intolerable. Like,
Yeah.
I did not like to be by myself. I did not like to be still. And I prided myself on that to some degree or another. I prided myself on my level of output and activity. And I used to, make fun of people who would go and relax on vacation, because I was like, I don't know how you could do that. You're just wasting your life, which is so interesting, like such an interesting.
The irony of it, right? Like
I was so deluded, like,
yeah.
but really, and I just, my level of anxiety and my level of discomfort with myself led to just always wanting to be around other people, always wanting to be social. I've actually discovered I'm very introverted, but I didn't know that about myself before, because I didn't even have any time to be alone, and so much of everything that I was doing was driven by a fear of being alone.
So what sort of things, what sort of activities, what sort of things have you done for your health and for your ability to, be more present and be more comfortable in your own skin? Can you maybe talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, getting to the point I did in 2018, it was like I had to stop. I think there had been a winding down after my dad died. So dad died in 2013. There had been a winding down and an unwinding and an unpacking that started then, but really culminated with this breakdown in 2018. And I just had to stop at that point. And I had some good mental health strategies. I had some good daily practices and rituals and things that I had been doing. But the way I would describe it was they kept me afloat. They weren't actually healing me. They were keeping me at an even keel. And after I had the breakdown, it was like, something's got to give. I actually need to like stop. So I just said to my team at Grow My Team, I can't work right now. I need some time off. Do your best to run the company, and I'll come back when I'm ready. And I took about a month. I was with my sister in Tasmania, and the first thing I did after just stopping and resting was go on silent retreat. And just to circle back to the last question you asked me, that was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done in my life. To go and sit with myself for 4 days, I was like, I don't know what's going to come up. I don't know what that's going to be like. Like, I'm just so scared. And to, no phone, no books, no distractions, nothing, just self. And my sister dropped me off and I was crying my eyes out, and she was just looking at me like, you don't have to do this, And I was like, no, I do have to do it. I knew you had to. I knew I had to. So that was the starting point. And I think that really prepped me for like getting through that. I did a lot of deep rest on that retreat. I slept a lot. I wrote a lot. I cried a lot. I don't know how much, there was no deep enlightened meditation going on. There was just a lot of sitting with my inner world, but I got through it. And I did have some kind of breakthroughs and movements. And after that, it was like, that was the slow climb out of what had been a life of anxiety that turned into depression in that year of 2018. Would have never really said I'd experienced depression before that, but ultimately the anxiety level that I had been living with turned into what I would call depression. So I sort of started this long climb out, but it was not linear at all. And after about 6 months and during that time, there was therapy, inner child work, coaching, my morning ritual, yoga, meditation, like everything really. But still, after about 6 months, just feeling like I'm not getting anywhere. Like, once again, I still feel like I'm kind of just staying afloat and started having kind of what's the point of living thoughts again, which had surfaced around the breakdown. And then at that same time received an email about an ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica and just felt a deep knowing that was something I needed to do and try. Really didn't do a lot of research, went and grabbed my credit card, looked at dates, booked it in for 3 weeks later and just went there. And I mean, whole other topic, and I could talk about it forever, but a lot of people do say that the plant medicine, the plants sort of call you, and that's very much how it felt for me. And I just trusted that and I went. And that was transformative for me. That was the moment that really, really I did deep healing on that retreat, deep inner work. I don't know that it would have been so deep had I not been doing all of those other practices for such a long time.
Yes.
I don't think there's any magic pill. I think do everything you can and something will click someday, some moment, something will happen. And for me, it happened on that ayahuasca retreat. And since then, life has become very expansive, very healing. I've got a lot more of a healthy relationship with the totality of the human experience, like the pain and the suffering and the struggle and the down days are valid. They're okay to have those. That's our underworld. That's where we go to kind of unpack and uncover. But provided we're actually doing that unpacking and uncovering, we can resurface and move through them. The Sarah pre-breakdown was just trying to avoid that and using everything she could to avoid it, numbing out with alcohol, busyness, all those things we were talking about before. So after, it kind of just changed everything about my world. It changed my relationship with things like alcohol. It changed my relationship with the way that I saw mental health. And I understood that anxiety and depression are not conditions. They're symptoms of things that need to change and things that need to heal in our lives. The Western medicine world will have us believe differently because it's largely driven by pharmaceutical companies, treatments that are profiteering, that are profit driven. And I'm not saying there's not a place for antidepressants. That's a whole other thing. But, this deep healing work that we can do on ourselves and having that support and that community and those practices, that toolkit for ourselves, is really transformative. So, yeah.
Do you think your inner work has actually really impacted your business, and how intangibly how?
Massively, yeah. Because that, especially, there's been a few significant moments, but especially that moment when I said to my team, I'm fucked, basically. I can't do anything. I can't turn up today. I can't turn up for I don't know how long, and just do whatever you can to keep the business going, and I'll be back when I can. That was a real moment of vulnerability and transparency, and I never really looked back. And that was the time when I was stepping in to grow my team as CEO, and I hadn't been running the company, so I didn't really know the team that well at that point. But I basically opened up to them, and they were like, oh shit, I hope you're okay. And they just did their best. But then that built a really strong bond for us. And then I started writing publicly, and sometimes doing videos and things on my Instagram and my blog and my newsletter and all of that. And just really documenting my journey. I had a strong calling to just share it. And then I started my podcast, In My Truth, and just sharing publicly and with my team, everything that was going on for me has completely transformed my experience of the world. And that really is, to go back to your question about loving and accepting yourself, that is what it is. When you can put it all out there and be like, this is it. This is who I am. This is my shadow and my light. This is all of it. And, we only hide that because we don't love and accept all of ourselves. But once we get to a place where we love and accept all of ourselves, we put it out there, and it doesn't matter anymore if people do or don't like that. Because we love ourselves.
Yeah, and you're happy to be disliked in some way, because you are really comfortable with who you are and you like yourself. So it's it's not a popularity contest anymore.
No, it seems more like some people we resonate with and some people we don't. It's not even so much of a liking or disliking, and trusting that. Whereas when we're trying to be what we think everybody wants us to be, what we think the world around us wants to be, like, we can never win that game.
No. Can you explain what a vision board is and how your vision board for 2020 came to be? Wink, wink.
You've done your research.
Did I need the wink, wink? Did I need the wink, wink? Probably not.
Well, a vision board is essentially, I guess people do it in all different ways, and I suggest being intuitive with it, but essentially get yourself a piece of cardboard and some magazines or what have you, and start putting visual images and words and whatever you can find in those magazines that are things that you want to bring into your life, whether they're very tangible goals or whether they're just, ways of being, things you want to incorporate more of, maybe from a lifestyle perspective. So I usually have kind of like a career business section. I have like my health and wellness section. I have my family, love, relationships section. And then I have my kind of physical home space, travel, adventure, and other things. And so I kind of loosely break mine into like 4 quadrants, and then just stick things down that resonate and make sense. So, I mean, I go and buy a bunch of magazines that are representative of things that I'm into, because then I'll naturally find images and words that I want to put down. But yeah, and so that's basically the process of vision boarding, and it's really, really fascinating and magical that, I'm sure people have heard about, if you write goals down or tell people, they tend to have more chance of coming true. And a vision board is just another strategy for that. But it's really true. Like, everything in my entire life that I have ever wanted, that I have ever put kind of out to the universe, that I've put energy and intention behind, has come true. And my 2021 was a really amazing one. And I attribute that to being in a really good place with the things that we've just been talking about, and being in very strong alignment and resonance with self. But I had left the relationship section blank because I was still figuring out, I did my vision board at the end of 2019, but I was still kind of figuring out what I wanted in that sector. And I went back to Soltara actually for another ayahuasca retreat in January of last year. And I knew I was going to be doing some work healing, so like sexual healing and healing with my relationship with the masculine and stuff like that. So I knew I was going to be doing that work, and I was like, I'm going to wait until I feel really sure about what I want in that aspect of my life before I put it on my vision board. Mm-hmm. And so I'd done every other area. And then on one Thursday evening, before I was flying to Minnesota the next day for retreat, I felt ready to put down what I wanted in the relationship sector. So I sat cutting it all out, putting it all in. I actually had a friend staying for me who was laughing at me because he's so not into all this stuff. He was just giving me such a hard time. But I don't care. I just did it all.
You didn't draw Joe, did you? You didn't draw your
I met Joe the next day. And he is everything and more that I could have wanted. So, I mean, damn, like, this stuff is powerful, and that, they say, be careful what you wish for. Like, it will come. Everything that you want in your life, everything that you spend a lot of energy and time manifesting will come. And the higher you are, or the more close you are to alignment, the more kind of inner peace you have, and the more connected you are with that energy, like, it'll happen fast as well.
Can you that's incredible, by the way. It's amazing.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Can you explain what Joe does and who he is to you and how you work together as a team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an amazing, amazing human, very conscious, very healed, does a lot of his own inner work, just an incredible soul. But he played NFL here in the US for 8 years. He is from America. Mm-hmm. He played professionally for 8 years. He retired in 2017 at the start of the year. Mm-hmm. He actually left his long-term relationship. They were engaged at the same time as he walked away from NFL. So he actually made the decision to leave professional sports, which is quite rare. Most athletes, kind of, the decision is made for them. They're cut or they're injured or something like that happens. But he was getting to the point where he was starting to question the toll the sport was taking on his body and also just his general happiness. And he was not super well supported by most people in his life. They were like, you're crazy. Just why would you give this up? This is everybody's dream. And he was just like, it's just not, I don't think it's in alignment anymore. So, you know, he's a very kindred spirit in that he does the hard thing. And that's something that I respect a lot in people, because I know what it takes. It's something that I've always had in me, that I will do the hard thing when I need to. And so, yeah, he's had a lot of similar-ish life experience to me. After he finished sport, he sold actually gave away all his possessions to a local charity, and bought a converted Sprinter van and spent 2 years traveling the United States with his dog Freedom, who's downstairs. If anyone does hear her whining a little bit in the background, I've just locked her in the bedroom.
That's perfect. Freedom. That's perfect.
Yeah. So his highest value is freedom. My highest value is freedom, and our dog is called Freedom.
Perfect.
But yeah, and he traveled for 2 years around the country, I guess, on his own journey of finding himself. And our timelines are very similar. He'd essentially spent, I think it was 16 years playing NFL, including at school and all of that. And I was like 17 years in financial advice. And there was a lot of identity crisis that came up for both of us at that time. He left that long-term relationship when say roughly the same time I did. And then we both spent these couple of years traveling and adventuring and finding ourselves. And then we met through the Albury Marcus Fit for Service community that we both joined at the beginning of 2019. Which is sort of it's called Fit for Service. So it's really about doing a lot of your own inner work and personal development in order to be of greater service to the world around you. And it's a great kind of tribe, family, community that we're a part of. But we didn't meet at all for the first year. He sent me a photo that someone had sent him the other day of the two of us in the photo, 3 people apart, with all of our mutual friends, and we didn't know each other. And there's so many photos like that from 2019 where we're like, were you at that event? How the hell did I not? Like,
Where's Wally, right? Where's Wally?
Like small events, like 20 people. And we're like, how did we? So it feels quite divine. It's almost like, you know, someone was pulling some strings that we weren't quite meant to meet until the exact moment that we did. So
that's
really
so
beautiful.
Cool. That's so cool. What does leading a family mean to you now, Sarah?
Got the deep questions. I mean, I think it's going to be similar to leading a team in a lot of ways. It's been as true and authentic as to who I am as I can be, and continuing my own journey of growth and evolution and bringing that to my family. Yeah. Oh, my phone's ringing. Sorry.
That's all right.
It's Joe.
Hello, Joe.
He knows we're talking about him. That's funny. That's how connected we are.
It's true. It's true. It's true. What about leaving a legacy? You talk about your dad. You talk about your dad and you know, his passing and, you know, the challenges that came with that. And, you know, I'm assuming you had a good relationship with your father and he was a mentor of yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to me that I use my life for good, I suppose, or I engage with this life experience to make a positive impact. It's not the only thing that drives me, but I guess the way I see it is I don't really know what this whole experience of life is. Like, we don't know. Why are we here? How are we here? What the hell does it all mean? Like, we don't really know, but we are here. That is true. We are having an experience. So the way I look at it is I might as well engage with the experience, align myself positively with the experience, so look for the things that make me feel good, feel expansive, grow and evolve. And I would like to make the world around me grow and expand and evolve as a result of who I am. So that's the way I look at legacy is, I mean, it just feels nicer to play this game of life, this experience we're having in a way that hopefully is more, you know, positive impact on people and the planet and the world around me.
I didn't hear money included in that. So, you know, when it comes to when you think about the podcast title, it's never about money. Does it resonate in any way, especially when it comes from a financial planner?
Totally. I mean, nothing I've ever done in my career is about money.
Yep.
I think money is energy, and I have a very healthy relationship that I'm always working on with money. So if something comes up and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What's that story? What's that belief? What's that thing? Like, I'll dive in. But generally, I have an abundant and healthy relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust that it flows to me and supports me to be all I can be, and flows from me in that regard as well for the higher good. And I aim to stay in that kind of space as often as possible. But when it comes to business and everything, I check if I have a business idea and something which essentially is like a problem I want to solve, something I'm incredibly passionate about. Really, all I'm looking to make sure is there a commercial, like a sustainable commercial model that underpins this, solving this problem? Because if there's not, it doesn't, like, it's not going to work. So I can't do it. But if I can find a way, and arguably there's always a way, but if I can find a way to create a sustainable commercial model, then I'll go and do it. And I trust that the money will flow to me.
What keeps you up at night, and what's still to do? Does anything
What keeps me up at night right now is being pregnant. It's like really messes with your
night?
sleeping. Generally, I'm a really good sleeper.
Yeah. Well, yep. Generally, you're not pregnant, right? So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I really try to stay out of a place of stress and worry about the future, and I really try to be more present. But obviously what I'm working on with Growmotely is really, something that I'm super excited about. And I see the world shifting and changing right now. And I see a real opportunity for this kind of total shift in the way that we're all connecting globally. I mean, I have a team with five of us in Growmotely and 12 of us in Grow My Team, and they're all from different countries, and it's amazing. Like, I love these people so much, and it brings such richness and vibrancy to our company culture.
Yep.
And I'm excited for that, for other people, for other business owners, and for other team members who get to work in these companies all around the world, and the opportunities and bridging and creating bridges for these opportunities for people everywhere to be able to work together on things that they really care about.
When I think about doing podcasts, I always worry about how long I could keep going on for. I could probably do a Joe Rogan 3-hour with you, but it's been such a pleasure, and I really don't want to wind it up, but we probably have to. But I think, from an insights point of view, not only for me personally have I learnt aspects about your journey and the bravery that you've shown, but also it's reaffirmed a lot of the decisions that I've made in my life around, incorporating. You can see the guitars in the background being, incorporating,
and the painting.
Well, that's actually my nephew. That's part of family. Quite talented.
It looks pretty cool from here.
And mindfulness and all of that, and even the journaling and all of that you do as well. But I've been incorporating. Hello, doggy. Freedom and being free.
I'll let you out soon, girl.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a really good segue. What spirit animal would you be, and why? Is my final question. Hello, Freedom.
Oh my God, Freedom is like, I'm the spirit animal. Let me out the room.
Stop holding my spirit back.
Well, I mean, I have. Oh wow, she's really going for it. Yeah. I have a spirit animal, which is a wolf, and I also have a bird. And the wolf represents my intuition and my groundedness, and the bird represents my freedom and my kind of flittiness and my wanderer and my adventurer.
That's so cool. You got greedy and you took two. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thanks again for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time, and good luck with everything. The pregnancy, baby Luca, your marriage, your Growmotely, everything. There's probably so many other things we probably didn't have time to discuss.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure chatting, and yeah, love what you're doing, love what you're about. It's a great show, and I think people will get a lot out of it. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of it.
No worries. Awesome. Thanks so much. That was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, I don't know. You've probably done a few of these things, but have you got any suggestions or feedback or anything like that from? I'm starting this out.
No, I think you're a great interviewer. You did really well.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's really cool.
All right. Yeah.
Some people are hopeless. Like they just, I'm like, I don't know why you have a podcast, but keep at it. No, I mean, some people are just, they stay too fixed on, they always have a set of questions and they kind of, like, I think I think having some prep is great, but allowing the conversation to flow and if something's interesting, like keeping going with that is really organic and just sounds better.
Yeah.
So it felt like you did a good job of that. I don't know, but yeah, you did really well.
Well, you're awesome as well. It was great to have you on. I think, at some point in time, maybe, down the track, and I appreciate that you're super busy, and I respect the fact that you control your time, because I do the same too. And but it would be great maybe to do another one at some point in time in the future. I don't know how this thing will go. I'm hoping it's going to be great, because I really want it to be great. And I enjoy it because I'm using all of this stuff that I use for my music skills as well. I'm playing songs.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm going to be on I'm going to be on Spotify soon. I'm going off with all that stuff. So I'm hoping it's going to be great. And this one will be great. I'm going to put it out there. I'll also give you a heads up. If you want to, and if you can, post it to your social media channels as well.
Yeah, totally.
And then, the final thing would be, if you have anyone else in your mind that you think that I'd get along with, and that would be just awesome to speak to around, what they've done in their business, and if they've done things a little bit maybe quirky for more the traditional people, but something different. Great.
Okay, so mainly like business owners who are just a bit more connected or whatever, a bit more conscious.
Yeah, I think about people like, I've instituted the 3-day working week and we're actually more profitable now.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have a think about it. No, I really enjoyed it. I'll definitely love to be a guest. Oh my God, Freedom's going crazy. I'd love to be a guest on the show again. So yeah.
Yeah, good on you.
I better go attend to this.
No, I understand. Right. Okay, take care.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good one.
See ya. Bye. I hope that this one was enjoyable to listen to and there were some moments of value. If you have resonated in any way with the sentiments of this podcast, we would be delighted to direct you to our website, www.itsneveraboutmoney.com.au, for more free resources and education aimed at improving your capacity to make sound financial decisions for the benefit of your family. We wish you every success, however you define it.